starting in
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Veronica.
And I'm Studio Steve.
We are the Pod Sound School.
And this is PodBitz. PodBitz is a quick and easy way to digest the latest news and events in podcasting.
Learn about actionable tips to podcast like a beast.
Listen to our podcast recommendations.
And be in the know with what is up in the PSS community.
And we do it all live.
While the clock is ticking.
Unedited.
And raw.
So get those ears ready.
Crank those speakers up.
And let's dive in. Well, welcome back to another episode of PodBitz, people.
Hi, Podskis.
This is the Pod Sound School, and this is our new segment, PodBitz. This is a bonus episode that we're doing every week, and this is the second time, the second run at it.
Yes. So let's see how we do.
Let's see how we do. So first off, we'll start by just talking about what's going on in the PSS community. And firstly, the Pod Sound School has been very sick.
Yeah, we've been a little bit under the weather.
Oh, man.
To say the least.
Yeah, the whole dang winter. So send some healing vibes our way. That would be really nice. Actually, we were so sick that I was very excited. I got a interview with one of my favorite personalities in the podcasting world, James Cridland from Pod News. And during our interview, I got hit with a sudden case of the pukes. And so I had to cut him off short, and he saw my face turn green, and it was a good thing I cut him off when I did, because I threw up and...
you got too excited with the interview, it made you puke.
Yeah, so for those of you who might be nervous about conducting an interview, it can never go as bad as mine did. So
yes, and... another news for us is that our YouTube channel is growing. We are so excited to see new subscribers coming in every day and see new people commenting on our content. That makes our day. And we have a comment from Fun Fitness, and he says that our channel is the channel for podcast knowledge.
Yes, it's the best channel for podcast knowledge.
Yeah, it's the best channel for podcast knowledge. Thank you so much, Fun Fitness. We do this for you. We're super hyped about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's official. We are going to Podcast Movement in LA, which is very exciting.
Podcast Movement Evolutions.
Yes. And the only way we could swing it, however, was to bring our baby.
Yeah.
So it's okay. She'll be wearing a little Pod Sound School t-shirt.
Yes.
And she'll be the mascot. So
yeah, we're very excited about this event. This is our first podcasting event that we're going to attend, even though we're being at it for a year. Yesterday, we just didn't feel as prepared. But this year, we're going to try to be on the major podcasting events. If we can.
As many of them as we can, yeah. And then the other news in the PSS community is we're very excited about our premium content that's starting this week. It's membership content, 2 episodes a month at our Patreon page. And we're totally redesigning our Patreon page, which we're excited about. And part of that is there's going to be an episode every other Friday, only available to the members of that patron group. So if you haven't come over and checked us out over there, this Friday will be the first episode, and it's going to be a really informative, really fun one. So
yeah, it's very affordable to join. So go ahead and check us out and get those bonus episodes. They're very good.
Get those bonus episodes coming, and it helps us out a lot to continue to grow, and it's really fun. So okay, well, what do you say we get to our first segment?
This Week in Podcasting.
Okay, so for This Week in Podcasting, what do we have, Veronica?
So I chose an article from the New York Times. It's named "Podcast Groups Aren't Just About Podcasts." And this article talks about the popularity and the need for Facebook groups for podcasts. Facebook groups for podcasts like Crime Junkie and Shameless have tens of thousands of members. And the article goes on saying that we all know that podcasting can be very lonely. We are recording in our studios with not much interaction with the outside world. Also, podcasts are consumed in isolation, and there is really not a place for comment to get those comments from the listeners. So this is why Facebook groups have gained such popularity among podcast listeners. So my question is, have you created your Facebook group for your podcast yet?
Yes, it's a great place. That's a really important thing, I think, to have a Facebook group. And like all the other recommendations that people are saying, it's always like, do I really need a Facebook group for my podcast? How many people are really going to join it? But you'd be surprised how quickly people join it. And then some events in the near future, not this week, to look out for. Well, one this week is that if you were looking at taking advantage of the early bird special for Podcast Movements Evolution in LA, that ends tonight. So if you want to come say hi to our baby and come say hi to the Pod Sound School in LA.
We won't puke on you.
Yeah, we won't puke on you. And we really want, our baby might puke on you. But, and then also we have the second annual iHeartMedia Podcast Awards. We'll stream live from iHeartRadio. They have a theater, I think, in Los Angeles. But
how cool.
Yeah, it'll stream live this Friday, which is fun. There's also the Brooklyn Podcast Festival, and that's coming up January 22nd. If you're in that area, it's the third iteration of the festival, and it's going to be really fun. And they just, they're all about podcasting, and they do a bunch of live podcasting at these festivals. It's really cool. We're really excited about the Outlier Podcast Festival because it's
here at home.
It's here in Salt Lake City. So, they actually started the festival for the Pod Sound Schools. That's about it. And then there's been some other fun things this week. Spotify has upgraded and changed its advertising, and it's excited about that as what it can do for advertisers, although that's kind of a little bit of a controversy between other people because with privacy sharing and things like that, because now they're making, I think they call it the SAI, they're making that available for advertisers. So just as far as people's age, sex, what they're interested in, how their listening habits are. But I like all these things about Spotify a lot, and I think Spotify is just such a valuable platform for discoverability. And also on the topic of Spotify, I read from the Podcast Business Journal, and I also saw it on Pod News, that Spotify is now, there was this article that came out that was claiming that Spotify is now the biggest podcasting platform. But upon research of the media research group, there's actually no data to back up that. They were also comparing that Google Podcast was just as big as Apple, and there's no real data there. So that was a little bit of fake news there for you.
Yeah, it's causing some controversy on social media for sure.
The Spotify.
We don't know if it's true or not.
Spotify Apple wars. Okay, let's move on.
This week in your queue.
For mine, I'll go first this time.
Okay.
So, I really like Understood. I actually got that from Paul Kondo with his Podcast Gumbo newsletter. Understood, on each episode, the hosts find questions the internet can't answer. And it's part chat and part documentary. It's a really good production. It's obvious that they have done their homework. And it's hosted by 4 people, Billy, Regina, Adrian, and John. And they're in their second season right now. They have some episodes like why pregnant people are turning their toilet seats blue, is Captain Crunch getting smaller, and what happened to McFlurries. What about yours?
My podcast, in my queue this week, it's Content 10X podcast. And it's from our very own Amy Woods. She was a guest on our podcast. This podcast is for content creators who want to maximize their content creation, as well as business owners who want to expand their digital presence. I highly recommend this podcast. It's full of great tips and ideas on how to repurpose your content and publish it on different platforms successfully. So don't miss out on this podcast if you are a podcaster trying to find other platforms to post your content on.
Great. Well, why don't we give everyone a little bit of a tip?
Yes.
Okay.
Tip of the week. Wait till I
So,
give you everything.
in the spirit of Facebook, we talked about Facebook groups. The tip of the week this week comes from a great article by Jordan Campbell. And it's basically about how to grow your audience using Facebook ads. And he has this great way that he does it where he says spending $5 a day is his thing. And basically you just have to have a Facebook page. You have to have a Facebook ads account set up. And then specifically you need to know your target audience as well as you possibly can. Who are the people that are most likely to subscribe to your podcast? And then what this is really cool for, if you don't know anything about Facebook ads, is Facebook allows you to highly target who they show your ad to, which is really fun. And so this targeting campaign, you could say, is specifically to get people over to Apple Podcasts. And the reason it's so effective to do it to Apple and not to all the other ones is because there is this really cool filter that you can put on to your Facebook ads that targets only people using iPhones. And people who listen to podcasts on iPhones, half of them are using Apple Podcasts. So, I mean, those are really good target, being able to reach an audience specifically who you're going to put them right in front of your subscribe button on your Apple Podcasts, which is pretty cool. And so with that, you can also then continue not just people who use iPhones and people who are on Facebook on their iPhone, so they could just one click get to your subscribe button, but then you can also add interests, like whatever the topic of your podcast is. Mm-hmm. So in his article, his example he said was tennis. And so he put people that would be interested in tennis and, people who are interested in podcasts. So it's all baked
using
in.
Using an iOS device.
Mm-hmm. And I think that does it for this week of PodBitz.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So remember to tune in on Friday for the first full-length episode on our Patreon.
On our Patreon, yeah.
The links to what we cover on this PodBitz will be included in the description of the episode. Remember to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at PodSoundSchool and to join our Facebook community, podsoundschool.com/community.
Yes.
And give us some love by leaving a rate and review at ratethispodcast.com/podsoundschool or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yes. And thanks again for joining in here on Twitter, if you did, to watch us live. And we don't respond to comments until after the PodBitz session is over. So happy casting, everyone.
Happy casting,
Sometimes all a
amigos.
school needs is a little facelifting. Laboratories functionally designed for the student's use. The new miracle of modern tools for instruction.